Really, if you think about it, Elvis had kind of Paul Gascoigne syndrome in that this is an incredibly talented man who is not necessarily hugely smart. And I think the same can be said of a lot of great talents who are manipulated to such a degree by the money-making machine around them that their lives are ruined, and there's always that possibility with a major talent. And I somehow had the sense to know that the way to keep my career buoyant, as it were, is constantly there are two things. One, you have to dig deeper and deeper for the truth, and that gives you a form of progress. And the more of yourself, the more honesty you can put from yourself into the music in a way that touches people, that's your goal. You're trying to get closer and closer to the truth. The other thing you have to do is you have to protect your mental state in order to be sure that you're going to be able to keep doing what you do. There are so many hugely talented people that seem to lose their access to their talent. Because I don't believe anyone loses their talent. I think people just lose their access to it, their ability to get in touch with it. And I think fame and everything that goes with a large amount of success and you being, somewhat of a money spinner, I think that stuff is incredibly threatening to artistry, And I've always thought that. I kind of think my mother instilled that kind of fear of excess, So I've found that the way ahead for me has always been to look at whether I'm happy, to look at whether I'm writing well, that kind of stuff. It's been very difficult in the last 10 years because I went through stuff that wasn't anything to do with me, wasn't coming from me. I went through bereavements that there was nothing I could do about. I went through, all kinds of things that were out of my control. But I have still managed to progress as a person. I'm still a much happier man than I was because I concentrated on my life and the people in my life and getting a good relationship together and working on it. You can't do all that stuff if you're trying to be in Heat magazine every week, You can't do it. And if you can't grow in the right way as a person, you're going to start risking losing what it was that people liked about you in the first place, So that's been and it takes a lot of thought, and it takes a lot of saying no. It takes a hell of a lot of saying no, even though you're building a resentment in the media by saying no. That is, I'm rewarded for that, I think, with the fact that I can still write songs people want to hear.
You wrote Shoot the Dog. Do you regret it in any way? It was an anti-war song. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to compare it to Mother's Pride, which was a song that told that story, as a family, as a mother. And the daddy's gone, now the son is going the same route. You went the politics route with Tony Blair and George Bush. Do you think that another Mother's Pride would have done the job?
No.
I
wouldn't have been attacked, would I? I got seriously attacked, and the fact that there was a frenzy of jumping up and down on George Michael's head because, God, he might have really screwed up this time, right? It's all very well. It hurt me. Actually, it didn't hurt me as much as the fact that nobody came to my defence, actually. That really hurt me.
Yeah.
That no one even avoiding the politics, no one even just stood up and said, look, freedom of speech, and it's only a video,
Yeah.
It's a satire, which actually was, 2D TV was doing the same thing every Saturday night, but for some reason me doing it was absolutely scandalous. But like I said, I was on one hand hurt, on the other hand, I was really glad that they had attacked me as forcefully enough to drag the issue into the mainstream. And the truth of the matter is the government didn't want to start talking about Iraq until September because they thought, just like Bush, that if they tied September the 11th into the equation, that they could persuade people. And the truth is, at the end of the reason I talk about the Jubilee and the World Cup at the end of Shoot the Dog is because I'm talking about the things that the government at the time was obviously really thankful for because it was keeping everybody busy. The answer to that question is no, I don't regret it for a second. It was worth the kicking I got because I genuinely believe that I was one of many people that were screaming at the public that they needed to look and be skeptical. And I think we achieved that. We didn't manage to, it's hideous that we didn't manage to stop it, that that huge amount of public opinion wasn't enough to change his mind. But even though I feel really defeated in that so many people are still dying, I do feel that it was probably the most constructive thing I ever did in my life, you know. So, no, I would never regret that.
How do you write a song?
The strangest thing is I tend to write in bits and pieces. What happens is when I go into the studio, all kinds of bits of lyric and bits of melody that have literally just popped up and made themselves known in my head come together. And the interesting thing is I used to write outside of the studio, and now I write inside the studio. I quite often start with a backing track, and I used to start with the melody in my head. And when you're trying to make number ones and you're trying to go for the jugular every time, that seems to be a good way, is to literally write the melody first. But the second half of my career, I've kind of started off with trying to get a feel that is all of its own before you even, you know, to try and get people feeling something before you even sing a word.
Yeah.
I'll get that mood going, and then I'll write over the top of that. That's how it works for me.
What is the downside of being a perfectionist?
It means very, very much less output than I would like. And it means an awful lot of hard work and concentration. And I mean, you know, one of my tracks can take literally months to make, and the average track goes down in the studio in 3 or 4 days. Yeah. So maybe because I'm the producer and writer and arranger, that's why it's such a slow process. And thank Christ I have the money that I can afford to do that. You know, I can afford to write and record slowly. I realise that's a big part of it and a big privilege.
Who do you respect in the music business at the moment?
I've always respected the way people like... I mean, I tend to respect people who have a similar attitude to me. So, like, I have respect for Sade and the way she keeps her head down. Total class, you know.
Yeah.
I have respect for the way... although it's struggling now, I've always had respect for the way Massive Attack did their work. You know, there's a line that Madonna used. I mean, Madonna doesn't normally hit me between the eyes with her lyrics. But the record that she just put out, which was, I think, a bit unfairly slated, there's a line in it, so simple but so true, where she said, it's so hard to find someone to admire, right?
Yeah.
And there are times in the history of pop culture where you were spoilt for people to admire. And I would have to say, especially in the wake of the travesty, which was, you know, Shoot the Dog, and the response to Shoot the Dog, and the absolute absence of support, I would have to say I'm a bit hard pushed to admire many people in the public eye these days.
You gave Aretha Franklin her first number one in 20 years in 87. And of course you were the first white male to duet with Aretha Franklin.
Was I? Oh, yeah, what is that? I mean, I think, I've said before, I think the absolute highlight of my musical career was to stand the other side of a mic, literally stand like they used to in the, you know, in the old days, literally standing either side of the mic and singing together. And that was incredible for me, an absolutely incredible moment.
There you were with Aretha Franklin, an amazing voice, and you said in the book, I'm not going to challenge her here. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Because some duets, you can hear people competing with each other.
Well, my feeling is, who don't even dream of competing with Aretha Franklin. You know, this is a voice from heaven, and you know, I can't riff. I can't do that whole Boys to Men thing where you sing about 80 notes in 2 seconds. I can't do that, and I don't have an incredible range or the kind of power that Aretha has. It may be closer these days, but the fact is, the thing to do with Aretha is to sing. If you're singing with Aretha, you have to nail down the melody, because sure as anything, she's going to go all over the place, right? Yeah. She's going to make it her own. She's going to turn it into an incredible piece of music, regardless. So you have to stick to the melody. And that suited me anyway, because it meant that I could concentrate on getting the hooks there, you know, and singing them the way they should be sung, and I could let her do her thing, which was just great, you know.
To George Michael, what is happiness?
Oh, it's simple, isn't it, really? Happiness, all I need in life is to feel productive and loved.